Ohio State must avoid letting outside noise distract them from playing their best ball Saturday against Nebraska.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a hump day edition of Locked On Buckeyes, your daily Ohio State podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Will Howard and some things Ohio State need to fix find their way in today's show, as well as what Ohio State's focus needs to be after the bye week. Because one thing we have all done over the past couple weeks is dissected that Oregon game. Looked at it, even gone back a few years in the Jim Knowles tenure and pulled out some stats that only people don't talk about. But after a loss, you get a little emotional, get behind that keyboard, and you start digging. And people have talked about things that are issues, not just this year for Ohio State, but in big games for Ohio State. Ryan Day is not good against top 5 teams. Jim Knowles lets the team down in big games. These are all things that can be distractions for a player. And Ohio State must avoid the outside noise from letting it become a distraction because Nebraska is coming to Columbus hungry. They just got smacked this past weekend. I literally was watching the game. I know we don't tweet out past the sticks when you're down 21 points, but I did that against Nebraska. I was born in Indiana. My mom is an Indiana grad. So, of course, I do look at Indiana a little bit different than most Big Ten schools. And so when Indiana was at home, it was homecoming weekend. I had some friends that were down there. I was tapped into the game. And next thing I know, Dylan Raiola and the Cornhuskers couldn't do anything. And so when they go on the road, it's that team's homecoming. They want to play spoiler, but they couldn't do it. And now they're coming on the road again to Columbus after Ohio State just went through a really unfortunate loss a couple weeks ago, and they're going to try to keep Ohio State down. They're going to try to pull in things from newspapers and from articles and from podcasts like this one and say, hey, even your own people are talking bad about y'all. Y'all know y'all ain't that good. Oregon didn't expose y'all. Some of y'all issues have been out here on Front Street for quite a long time, but people weren't able to take advantage of them. Oregon did. And Dylan Raiola, who was an Ohio State verbal commit at one point, he's going to come in and say, I know I committed to Ohio State at one point, but Nebraska was the right choice for me, and he's going to try and come in and embarrass Ohio State. These are things that can be distractions for anyone, not just players, for the coaches, for the analysts, for everybody. And if these things start to become a distraction, this could very well be a spiral downward for Ohio State during a year where some people believe this is the most talented roster in the country. From offense to defense, all across the board, numerous people believe this might be the most talented roster in the country. No one's saying Ohio State is going to go undefeated. That's so hard. I mean, some of the best teams that Urban Meyer had, some of the best teams that Nick Saban had, didn't go undefeated. I mean, even 2015, which may be the best team Ryan Day ever had, Urban Meyer ever had, didn't go undefeated. 2019, Ryan Day's, this season is not over yet, so I can't really say what this year is compared to 2019. But 2019, Ryan Day's best team, that team didn't go undefeated. And so going undefeated is really hard. I didn't expect Ohio State to go undefeated this year, and that was something I talked about in the preseason. And that's just where we are right now. If perfection is the goal, you're going to have a hard time when you don't meet said goal, especially when that loss comes early in the year. If you get down, if your morale goes down and nobody can pick it up and help you pick it up, it could be another loss. And for Ryan Day, you don't want to be 10-2 at the regular season for the first time in your career with what may be the best roster you've ever had in Columbus. You don't want to do that. So what does Ohio State need to do? Keep their minds right. Stay focused. Remember, we are Ohio State. Ohio State going into the game against Nebraska, they're so talented, they just got to focus on fixing their own things. Now, you got to scheme things up. You got to watch the film and be ultimately prepared for what Nebraska's going to throw at Ohio State. But Ohio State is one of the teams, especially this weekend, they got to focus on themselves. Offensively, how do you fill the hole of Josh Simmons? How do you fill the hole of Will Kacmerak? Is it more G. Scott Jr. and just 11 personnel? Is it 12 personnel with G. Scott Jr. and Patrick Gerd, or G. Scott Jr. and Bennett Christian? What is it? I would personally love, we'll talk more about the 12 personnel in the very next segment of the show, but I would love for 12 personnel to be more of a staple for this offense this year, because I do think, especially with the run game, which has been really good so far this year, you want to take it to another level, get Patrick Gerd out there. We haven't seen him play much this year, but when he has played, he has got the job done, and his presence has been felt. Now, imagine if Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson had a lead blocker 25% of the time, and that lead blocker is Patrick Gerd. You're going to find they're going to get more comfortable. They're going to get in more of a rhythm, and we're going to be looking at an Ohio State offense that post-bye week is taking strides and is getting better and better and better, just like that defense. Defensively, they can get better too. And for that unit, where that's been a lot of the focus, as far as that's where a lot of the attention has been. We've done numerous shows talking about the Buckeyes defense. It can be a distraction, man. Think about Lathan Ransom's injury, and if he misses the game this week, which I think he might miss the game against Nebraska, he could also miss the game up against Penn State. You don't want it to happen, but it's possible. And if that happens, who's his replacement? Does Hancock go back and Matthews Jr. come in? Does Hancock stay at the nickel? And does Jalen McClain and Malik Harford come in? Who is it? Not sure. But whoever it is, a lot of the things that are being said can be distractions. Keep your blinders on. Stay focused. Don't let the outside noise become an impact on you. Keep your preparation high. Keep the standard high. Keep your teammates and remain keeping them accountable. Coaching, hey, continue to find ways to get better and to find even the smallest detail that you might say, well, this is a minor detail. We don't have to focus on it, but maybe focusing on that small detail could be huge in the game on Saturday. I think Ohio State is going to beat Nebraska. My wife asked me earlier what my score prediction was for the game. I really haven't put that together yet. Normally I have that on Monday. With the bye week when it was and some other things going on with Ohio State, my mind has actually not got that score prediction yet. Y'all will hear it on Friday. Trust me, the Friday pod, you're going to get that score prediction there. You're going to get it here first. And I'm excited to unveil it to you down the road. I'm curious to see what Ohio State is on Saturday. I think if they play the same game like they had against Oregon, against Nebraska, they'll win. Like, they'll beat Nebraska soundly. But we want to see improvements across the board. Even things that were good against Nebraska, they can get better. Run game can get better. Through the air can get better. Pass pro, everything can get better. I'm looking for that on Saturday. Will Howard, is he still being an inaccurate thrower? Is he improving in that area of his game? On defense, is there more of a consistent pass rush? What do we get? Everybody can get better. And the time that we can see if you have improved is Saturday afternoon against Nebraska. It's homecoming weekend. Nobody wants to lose their homecoming, but also Ohio State wants to get better and show that they have improved during the bye week. I can't wait to see it, but the way to show you're improving, keep them blinders on, baby. Stay focused on the task at hand. And remember, if you focus on yourself, you'll like the result on Saturday afternoon in the shoe. The Buckeyes also focus on themselves. They'll fix the things that need to get fixed. And among three categories that came up in the presser yesterday, there are two key areas that Ohio State can focus on improving in. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. During Ryan Day's presser yesterday, there was a question that came up, I believe, from Jeremy Birmingham of the podcast, and he was talking about three areas: the players on Ohio State's team, the scheme Ohio State uses, and the coaches that are coaching the players. What area does Ryan Day believe that the team can get better? This isn't just a defensive question. This is a question for everybody across the board in all three phases. Does Ohio State put the players in the right position? Ryan Day believes they do. Does the scheme fit the players? Can the scheme change? Yes, it can. Are the coaches doing all the right things? No. So there's three categories. Two of the three are areas that Ohio State can improve, and they need to show improvement in these areas on Saturday. I talked about it all week. The improvement week that Ohio State had a couple weeks ago I don't think we saw the improvement that we thought we were going to see. I truly don't. And I'm not trying to be negative here. I don't want to be a negative Nancy or one of those guys here that's just negative all the time. And you come on the show and Jay's mad about the run game, and Jay's negative about this, Jay's negative about that. If I'm being honest, that's great, but I don't want to come on here and be negative and negative and negative. But what I could have about this, though, the coaches have not gotten things right all the time this year. And that improvement week that we all heard, this is an improvement week, not a bye week, not an off week. Y'all, this is an improvement week. Okay, the passing game got a little bit better. After that, the defense stuffed one of the best running backs in the country. But overall, did the team overall get better? I don't know, man. But it can. It can get better. And that's where I think things are right now with Ryan Day. Things can get better. And it starts with, got the players right. You got one thing correct. You're recruiting the right guys. If you're not recruiting the right guys and you're not putting the players in the right positions, we would have a massive problem when this is a natty or bust year. So you got that part correct. When it comes to the scheme, and I mentioned this earlier in the show about offensively changing some stuff up, I might start beating the drum like crazy for more 12 personnel with Patrick Gerd. I don't care who the other tight end is. I don't care if it's G. Scott, Bennett Christian. They say Jelani Thurman has to step up. Cool. I truly don't care. I would prefer Okay, I do care. I would prefer that it be G. Scott Jr. or Bennett Christian be the other tight end with Patrick Gerd. But honestly, man, give me that 12 personnel. Now, I know we haven't seen it a lot, but also another thing I would like to see, as long as Judkins is healthy, like we believe, like they say he is, give me Judkins and Henderson in the backfield together, because that was one of those things that coming into the season, we thought we might get a lot more this year than we've gotten. We've gotten it in spurts and pockets, but not consistently. And I do think coming up, especially against Nebraska, which their defense is way better than what we saw them play like against Indiana. One thing that I think you can throw at Nebraska that would be a wrinkle that they might be preparing for, but they might not be ready for, is two running backs in the backfield with Judkins and Henderson, or maybe two running backs in the field together. Maybe one split out wide, maybe one's in the backfield. Maybe it's a 5-wide set with both running backs split out wide. Whatever it might be, that is a wrinkle that I don't believe any defense in the country wants to see. We talk about TreVeyon Henderson. We have seen the growth of him over the past 4 years. His vision has gotten better. His ability to break tackles and be a tougher runner, that's improved. Pass pro, that's improved. But now you couple him with Quinshon Judkins, who's a fierce, hard-nosed runner in his own right, great between the tackles. His vision is good. So they do a lot of the same things, but they complement each other very, very well. Imagine rolling into the shoe on Saturday, and all of a sudden Nebraska has to deal with Judkins and Henderson on the field at the same time. That is a literal nightmare, because what do? You try to focus on one guy, the ball's going to the other guy. You're just confused because you have no answer. And I don't think that Nebraska nor Matt Rule have an answer for potential two running backs in the backfield, being Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson. And I think that's something that we should see going forward. Stop saving stuff, man. Just roll out there and do it. Now, if you want to say something special for that Michigan game, I get that. And that's a little bit different. But for right now, man, just pull all the tricks out. Open up the playbook, because y'all been hiding too much stuff. And if you don't hide stuff, like if they open up the playbook a little bit more against Oregon, Ohio State might win that game even with the defense playing like it did. Speaking of the defense, as I get a little calmer here, because I got a little excited about that whole Judkins and Henderson thing in the backfield, because that should have happened a long time ago. What also should have happened a long time ago is Ohio State pass rush, change stuff up. I've heard Bill Landis and I've heard other people talk about Ohio State's D-line doesn't really do any twists or stunts or anything like that. You don't really see looping around of any kind of linebackers. None of that stuff happens. And you know what? That's very odd, because I believe it was in high school. I played center in middle school, started playing football in middle school. 7th grade, 8th grade football, was a center for a couple of years, center my freshman year, broke my snapping hand my sophomore year, so I had to move to guard and then eventually moved to D tackle as well. But one thing I knew and I loved when I started learning about football, learning about the different things that happen on the football field or different variations that coaches call to kind of trick up the opposition. Hey, if you can get guys looping around and twisting and doing some stunts and getting a little creative on the D-line, that's going to create havoc. Think about what we have seen from Ohio State's offensive line this year when they go up against defensive linemen. It may be a 4-man rush, but you got guys twisting and stunting and doing things that cause confusion. We see other teams have success with it. Why has Ohio State not done that a lot? Your guess is as good as mine. But the good thing going forward is Ohio State is able to change some things up. Forget what hasn't happened in the past. We're looking into the future and discussing things that should happen. And Ohio State should change things up and be more creative on defense. Not just on the defensive line, but overall, be more creative. This team is too talented to not be more creative with the pass rush, or maybe not be more multiple in looks on defense. Heard a lot about bear fronts. Whatever variation you want Ohio State to pull out. If you want to do a 3-3-5, a 3-3-5 stack, or a 3-2-6, whatever it might be, Ohio State can do it. And I don't say that normally about all teams that Ohio State has. They can do it because they're that talented. Now, the scheme can get better, and there's numerous areas that the scheme can improve, but also the coaching. Because Ryan Day is kind of coaching in a contract year. You know, in the NBA and the NFL, when guys are in contract years, they kind of show up and show out, try to get the bag, try to get paid. Well, Ryan Day right now is coaching in a contract year. I'm not saying he's going to get fired at the end of the year, but, well, he could very well be in a mess at the end of the season if things don't go his way, if things don't go right. Let's just say, hypothetically, the Buckeyes beat Michigan, don't win the Natty, lose the first playoff game, don't win conference. Things are getting a little muddy and a little tricky, a little cloudy for Ryan Day. But let's just say Ryan Day does all the things and accomplish all 3 goals, or they accomplish the first 2 and not the final one, which is winning the Natty. He is fine. It's a contract year, man. And in contract years, you got to act like everything's on the line. And right now, to date, at least in that Oregon game, because I don't think Ohio State's defense was fully prepared, and I don't think Ryan Day was fully prepared for a lot of things that happen defensively. Got to change, baby. We saw Ryan Day make changes with the coaching staff in the offseason. I don't think he's going to fire anybody right now in season, but I do believe something has to change. And I can't wait to see what changes. Scheme has to change. Ryan Day acknowledged that. Coaching has to change. Ryan Day acknowledged that too. And I can't wait to see how these two things change and how apparent those changes are Saturday in the shoe when Nebraska comes to town. Something we haven't done in a couple weeks is a stock watch. Well, baby, the stock watch is back and it's coming at you next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Once again, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And maybe you want to place your first $5 bet right now. Well, Ohio State is currently 18.5-point favorites against a team up north. Yes, that is aligned via our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Go on the app, go online at FanDuel.com. Put that $5 on Ohio State minus 18.5 because many of us believe the Buckeyes are going to smack the Wolverines this year. I can't wait to watch the game. I can't wait to see what actually happens. And I can't wait to beat Michigan, man. Michigan is not a good football team. They got a psychological advantage right now, but I think Ohio State has the goods. They should have the goods to overcome said advantage. All the action goes down in a couple places. I said one earlier on the FanDuel Sportsbook app and at FanDuel.com. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. The stock watch was away last week with the bye week happening and changing some things up with our midseason coverage. Didn't have a stock watch. Let's go ahead and bring that bad boy back right now. Stock up, stock down, 3 on each category. And the first one is going with number 18, stock up. Go back if you missed it. Check out his presser from a day ago. He is a guy that has his head on right after that game against Oregon. It was a loss. He wasn't perfect. I'm not even going to knock him for sliding with 1 second. Honestly, I understand why he slid when he did. It was not the best decision at all. You really have to speed up and say, well, if I start my slide with 1 second left, we can get the timeout in, and well, the refs may miss it. Okay, cool. So you're leaving things up with the refs, and we saw how that went in that day. But Will Howard, so far this year through 6 games, played a whole lot better than I expected. He has been a great addition to the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I do think going forward, his game is going to improve. Talk about maybe some more deep ball passes, and they trust the deep ball. I'm still in a wait and see mode because really, buddy, I don't really care if you throw the ball deep. I don't know if you need to do that consistently, but if you want to, or if it's called upon and you show us your arm has improved and is stronger, great. But I don't know if it's needed because you're literally throwing slants and drags, and these boys are taking it 50, 60 yards to the house. So all the stuff about, well, deep ball, if you get the same yards and the throws are being thrown shorter, does it really matter? Truly, does it really matter? Yeah, you want to throw the ball deep. I'm not trying to be that guy to say, no, don't throw the ball deep. But if it ain't working, I'm not going to say, try to knock the door down when the door is not moving and you tried over and over and over and over when you already have an alternative. And that's kind of where my mind is right now. Now, the Buckeyes have an alternative, and it's a really good one. It's one that most schools in the country don't have. Why try to knock a different door down when you already have a solution to the problem? Just say it. Also, stock up on changing things up, because I do think changing things up has needed to happen for a while, honestly, especially with the pass rush. Ryan Day talked about previously how getting pressure on the quarterback is very, very important, but also not putting emphasis on sacks and saying things are okay with the way they are and don't focus on this, don't focus on that. Then Ryan Day kind of said, we ain't getting the job done. And he was very candid. He was very precise with his words, and you could tell he was pretty upset. He actually dropped this line during the presser, quote, not happy with anything right now, end quote. And I'm thinking, Ryan Day, you're dropping that right now as you're going into a Nebraska week? I feel sorry for the Cornhuskers. Not only is it Scarlet out the shoe, is it homecoming weekend? You're also getting a pissed off Ryan Day. And if we get pissed off Ryan Day or Georgia Ryan Day the rest of the season, whoo, I feel sorry for y'all because that version of Ryan Day is an assassin. Y'all might not be ready for what Ryan Day throws your way. Stock up on Ryan Day because I do think Ryan Day understands the assignment right now. I am not really sure that was going to be something that'll come out of my mouth right now, but after listening to his press conference and seeing his demeanor and hearing what he had to say, he understands that time is now. You can't waste what's right in front of him. You can't waste the talent in the locker room. If you pinpoint the issues and you say these things are wrong, what are we going to do to fix them and how quickly are we going to fix them? Things are going to change now. Now. You can't waste any time. Things are going to change now. And I'm really more positive on Ryan Day, even after a loss, because Ryan Day is understanding this ain't working. It has to change. We're not wasting any more time. Going from being primarily in the offensive meeting rooms throughout most of his Buckeye time as a head coach to now when you're the head coach, not the OC anymore, head coach and OC, you're just the head coach and no other title. You can go in the defensive meeting rooms right now and you can say, hey, this got to be fixed, this got to be fixed, and you can do things that you really weren't able to do before. I'm glad that Ryan Day is taking time right now to look at everybody and say, this ain't good. This ain't good enough. We got to change things immediately. I believe he is taking steps to change things. We're going to see if he's going to change, if things have changed on Saturday. Maybe we'll see if things have changed down the road. But I personally believe that Ryan Day is doing a better job than I expected right now in his new, more CEO type role of the Buckeye football program. Stock down on injuries, going to speed up here pretty quickly. I was pretty pleased, and I even did a stock watch on and included the injury bug not really hitting Ohio State. But what are we talking about right now? Judkins and Kacmerak and Simmons and Ransom and maybe some other players that are dinged up. Why? Because this is a brutal game. That was a very physical game in Austin Stadium. And guys get hurt playing football. I've been hurt. And I've had multiple injuries playing football, and it's not fun at all. But it happens. Now, Simmons out for the year, as confirmed by Ryan Day. Ransom has an injury. Ryan Day wouldn't talk about it, which to me makes me think that he might miss time. I mean, do you want to? Is it Jalen McClain or Malik Harper who replaces him? I would be more comfortable with Jordan Hancock going back and Lorenzo Styles coming in, or Hancock going back and Jermaine Matthews Jr. coming in at nickel. I'd be more comfortable with that than bringing in McClain or Hartford, but you got to do what you got to do, man. And the injury bug has hit Ohio State once again. It's not fun talking about it year after year after year. Stock down, on Jim Knowles. And I was a Jim Knowles believer when he came in. I liked the scheme that he had. But here we are in year 3, and the things we talked about and hyped up when Jim Knowles was hired, we haven't really seen them. And I am starting to wonder, is it because of Larry Johnson? Is it because of the players that Ohio State's recruited up front? Or is it Jim Knowles not being as creative as he needs to because maybe the talent is good enough so that he doesn't need to be creative? What we have seen is the talent is great. You still need to be creative. Like, don't let the talent be something that pushes you to not be creative, because this is football, baby, and you're a D coordinator, and you're going up against schools that are really, really talented. You know what? Sometimes beats really talented teams. Creativity. Use your creative mind to overcome some of the things that these defenses throw at, the offenses, throw at Ohio State. Also stock down on Big Ten chaos. I want to pull this up quickly because Bill Bender of the Sporting News, we haven't had Bill on the show in quite a long time. That's something that I was kind of expecting to have this year, but with the schedule, it just hasn't happened yet. I'm going to pull this up on Twitter here very, very quickly. And he put out a scenario, a very interesting Big Ten scenario, where there could be 5 one-loss teams at the end of the season. Indiana's 1 loss is to Ohio State. Oregon's 1 loss is to Illinois. Ohio State's 1 loss is to Oregon. Penn State's 1 loss is to Ohio State. And Illinois' 1 loss is to Penn State. That would be chaos. Ohio State's right in the midst of it. Now, we do know at the end of the day, that's a possibility. That's probably not going to happen. Games are going to be played, and games are going to figure out hopefully without any crazy tiebreakers, where things are going to fall. So that's a thing that could cause chaos, and that's also realistic. But I'm not here for Big Ten chaos. It's just Big Ten chaos. Keep Ohio State out of it. Keep them above the chaos and say, well, Ohio State's number one. And just other schools that are tied two through four. Let the tiebreakers decide and pull those schools apart. Thank y'all for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast. Craig Sheeman is the guy that puts the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a hump day. We'll see you next time.